So help me figure out why I can't get this house sold.
This is day 107 of us trying to sell our home here in Florida.
This house is priced to sell. Yeah, well, it's been on the market for 2 months. So how about you take that off your listing?
Okay, so today we're going to be taking a look at the housing market, but specifically the cases of people's homes that are not selling right now. There are many reasons for this, as we are going to see, but it all comes down to affordability at the end of the day. The prices of pretty much everything just keep going up while wages don't do the same. We have a ton of stuff to go over today, along with comments from you guys from previous videos, so if you want to be featured on a future video, leave in the comments down below. But let's start off with this clip of somebody documenting every single day they can't sell their house.
This is day 107 of us trying to sell our home here in Florida, and it is not selling. I know everyone keeps telling me in the comments that it is our price, and I'm telling you guys it is not our price. We've dropped our price 3 times now. We are lower than everything else on the market. If you guys have any suggestions what else to try, I mean, it's a bigger house, so maybe there's just not families our size that have this. So we're a family of 6, so it's a big house. Yeah, I don't know, maybe there's not people our size, maybe there's people sort of in our price bracket who are trying to move to our area. We're gonna try to get like a professional photographer to come in and kind of stage the house, get the drone, get the 3D imaging, all that stuff, to see if presentation will just get more eyeballs, and then more eyeballs will be more showings will hopefully eventually equal a sale. But man, if you guys have any recommendations, put them down in the comments, man. I'm all ears.
Okay, so before I say anything about it, we could go over to the comment section. It's because you didn't price it right from the initial listing. Your price reductions are a red flag to buyers. You need to unlist it for a while and then price it where it needs to be. I do think that could be a contributing problem, but I do think that there are a host of other issues. First, it being in Florida. It seems like almost every single year they get wiped off the face of the earth with some crazy hurricane, so much so that insuring your house is near impossible or ridiculously expensive. The second thing, with him talking about not being the price, he's lower than everybody else in the neighborhood. That does not matter. You could still be overpriced in the eyes of the buyer. Possibly all of your neighbors could be wildly above the mark, so you just listing it lower than everybody in your community I don't think is good enough either. And he added in that it was in fact a large house. They have a 6-family household, so most likely the house is still pretty expensive and just out of the budget for most normal people today. But there is a little add-on with another clip from him we could play real quick.
This is day 110 of trying to sell our house, and it's not the price, but I've seen a lot of other people comment this, that nobody wants to live in Florida, which also isn't the case. I mean, we're technically the fastest growing state in America. Now, you might disagree with things that Florida does, but it doesn't change the fact that we are the fastest growing state.
Okay, so again, we could go over to the comments real quick. It's the price. It's always the price. Your house is worth what someone's willing to pay. There's far more supply than demand right now, so in order to sell, you must continue to drop the price until you find the point at which the supply curve intersects with the demand curve. And maybe that is true. Florida is the fastest growing state, even though I've seen quite a bit of people talking about the exact opposite on social media, saying that they need to get out of there because of all the storms and how expensive everything is. But we'll just ignore that and say that it is growing very quickly. That still doesn't mean it's going to help your case in selling the home.
If you're a home seller in Florida, I feel so bad for you. Data was just released that showed the top 10 buyer markets in the US, and topping the list is Miami, Florida. In fact, 6 out of the top 10 cities are in Florida. When they say a top buyer's market, what they really mean is there's no demand to buy houses there, and there's way too many people trying to sell. So if you're one of the few people trying to buy, you have all the leverage. Now with the rising insurance costs, it seems like Florida may not be the retirement paradise it once was.
So it sounds like the guy from the previous clip is in a pretty rough position. They're in a very different landscape compared to 2020 when everybody was moving during COVID. The prices of homes were skyrocketing. I guess there are still many people moving there currently, but the supply of houses heavily outweigh the demand.
So this is day 101 of our house being on the market. It's been frustrating to say the least. During the first month, we did get an offer, but it was over 100 grand below our asking price, and we kind of scoffed at it and turned them down, thinking we would wait because it was only, the first month. So now here we are, day 101, and we have not had any offers since then. So we're kind of second guessing ourselves if we should have accepted that first offer, because we have already packed up most of our home, so that we can move before our kids start. We have one starting junior high and one starting high school, so we kind of wanted to make the transition. But feels like it's a little bit too late since school just started. So yeah, trying to figure out what to do. Any advice? Thanks.
So them eventually regretting the offer that was $100,000 less than what they wanted kind of tells you all you need to know. How overpriced is this listing? I bet they put it on the market thinking that they were going to get top dollar like everybody else a few years ago. Many people's home value doubled if you bought in 2018 or 2019 compared to 2022 or 2023. And that's just not really the case anymore. We could take a look at some of the comments. Whatever you owe on the house doesn't determine the value to buyers. It sounds like you're overpriced. There you go. Even if you owe $500,000, it could still only be worth $400,000. The market is changing. What do people do in such situations? Either they take the loss or they stay in the house and don't move. When you price your house too high, people move on to other houses. Thank you. We dropped the price to a little under what we purchased it for. So with that information, it kind of sounds like they bought at the peak of the market a few years ago. And with all those people talking about how much equity they gained in just a few years pre to post COVID, many people get that in their head that that's just the norm when you purchase a house in general. It'll just keep rising up in value very consistently, and that's not happening in a lot of markets anymore. We have a comment from you guys. We're not in a housing shortage crisis. We are in an affordability and seller delusion crisis. And honestly, I have to agree with that.
This house is priced to sell. Yeah, well, it's been on the market for 2 months. So how about you take that off your listing? If you're unaware, real estate agents have access to something called a private remarks section on all listings. And sometimes listing agents like to put in, this house is priced aggressively to sell within the first weekend, bring offers. And then the home sits on the market for 30, 60, 90 days, and they forget to remove that from the listing. I have now shown 3 properties in the span of 2 days that had this in their private remarks section. And lo and behold, the house has been on the market for 2 months and they previously tried to sell it 90 days ago for an even higher price. And people are just not understanding that we are in a market that has changed. Sure, some homes priced aggressively and are in perfect condition in some desirable areas are still selling fairly quickly, but for the most part, homes are sitting for 30, 60, 90, sometimes even 120 days and having multiple price reductions.
It's priced to sit. This will go quickly, listed for 335 days. There's a listing around the corner from me has been sitting on the market for 130 days. Quote, this house will sell itself. Maybe you should give it a shot then, bud, because the house is slacking. But this comment from you guys is very relatable to anybody who goes on Realtor, Zillow, any of those types of sites. As a buyer, when you see the same house that you want sold in 2019 for $130,000 and now they want $260,000, you almost want to laugh. That is extremely common now. But we can move on to this clip with somebody not knowing why this house isn't selling.
So help me figure out why I can't get this house sold. It's been shown many, many, many times and just no contract on it. So give you a quick look of the neighborhood it's in. It's the neighborhood, great yard. We got sod in the front. We've got landscaping. We've got a double car garage. We've got sprinkler systems. This is a 1479 square foot house with 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Kind of an open concept floor plan. So you walk in and we've got the living space here. We've got a coat closet right here, half bath.
Okay, so he just starts running through a lot of the things in the house, but right off the bat, you don't know why it's selling because it looks like every other house in the entire neighborhood. On top of that, all being new construction with the worst quality possible. Another one that I personally just don't like to hear anymore is the open floor concept. It's way more common with the newer builds because it's much easier to just make one big room that's your living room, your dining room. The kitchen's right there too, and it's next to the bathroom. I'm starting to like houses that are all divided up and have their own rooms. It just screams to me that these contractors build these houses in record time, putting barely any effort in and then just moving on to the next house. And I would have to be the one dealing with all the consequences when everything starts to break. But we could go over to some of the comments. 479 square feet, 2-story. That's why. I personally don't think that's that bad. It's a decently sized house. But the next comment, that's landscaping. It was just kind of dead grass. Really nothing special about it. It's all about the Benjamins. The price is too high. That's why. And I actually found another user who responded to this video as well.
So help me figure out why I can't get this house sold.
As a homeowner, I can tell you why I wouldn't buy that house, and it's kind of 3 things. 1, it looks like a cookie cutter beige nightmare, which I hate. 2, it's next to a bunch of other houses that are cookie cutter beige nightmares, which I also hate. And 3, that screams HOA to me, and I will never buy a house that belongs to an HOA because HOAs.
that house could be $10 and I still wouldn't buy it because HOAs.
And that goes very well with a comment from you guys. If I see an HOA, I'm not buying. So along with the issues of it being a cookie cutter compared to everybody else in your community makes it a little bit creepy, and the new construction just not having the craftsmanship or quality there, you're probably going to have to pay a solid amount in HOA fees. You're not really allowed to do much to your house because of those organizations. I mean, I've made an entire dedicated video showing all the horror stories of HOAs, but we could go to the other side of the fence on that argument and could be another factor on why your house is not selling.
Your neighbor has 35 cats and you're trying to sell your house. But every time someone comes to your house, they look over the fence and they're like, why are there 35 cats over here? And they don't like cats. This is a hard thing as a home seller. My name's Liz and I'm your real estate agent in Charlottesville and Richmond, Virginia with EXP. And oftentimes your neighbors are going to have an effect on the sale of your house, whether you like it or not.
There's a house we were considering, but the next door neighbor's yard is cluttered with boats, trailers, and just straight up junk. I don't want to look at that every day. Sold my dad's house a year ago, paid a landscaper a lot of money to clean up the next door neighbor's yard because it would have definitely affected the sale of the house. We ended up with a drug house across the street. It definitely affected the sale price and time on the market. So I personally don't like HOAs because I don't want to be restricted in a house that I'm already paying way too much money for. However, if you do have that freedom to do whatever you want with your property, some of your neighbors could take it too far and hurt the value of your home. But we'll just go back to a clip of wondering why these homes aren't selling right now.
So we were wondering why this house didn't sell. I mean, you got a really nice master bathroom in here and walk-in closet and, you know, great tile work, right? Nice fixtures, and then there's that outside of the shower, and then the door opens out. You know, so I mean, I mean, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what these builders are smoking these days. This is a new build, by the way, 2023. I don't understand.
Super easy fix. You just have to move all the plumbing, redo the tile work, and the drywall. Piece of cake. There were some people in the comments like this as well. Am I the only one who thinks this is genius? How? I have no idea why that would be the case. It's not like it's a nuisance to turn it on when the knob is legitimately right next to you in the shower. And at least with my own experience, I take very long showers, so eventually the water starts getting cold. That means I slowly have to move it warmer and warmer until I only have cold water left. It would just be absolutely ridiculous. But we have another one here when the listing agent says we have multiple offers, but Zillow says it's been on the market for 758 days.
I'm not interested in anything you have to say.
But I have spoken to the scorn regarding the phone that has... Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're a liar.
And suddenly, it's off the market because the seller removed the listing. Wonder why. This beauty won't last long, girl. You may want to update the listing. It's crazy how common this is, even with a house that isn't very desirable. Either real estate agents or the sellers want absolute top dollar. Now, obviously, I'm from the US, and the majority of clips and people who watch these videos are as well, but this doesn't mean that these same issues aren't happening all over the world.
As you all know, I've got my house on the market and we are moving to Bali, a family of 4. And the house market has just been non-existent at the minute. When I first put it on, I was getting like 2 viewings a week, but I've not had anyone for about 3 weeks. And I'm starting to panic because obviously we've got Christmas coming up. It's going into autumn, winter, and I don't want to buy anything in case like we sell the house and then we move and then I'll have all this stuff. Like, what do I do? Like, I can't not get the kids any Christmas presents. I want new clothes because it's winter and I've only got my old winter clothes. Like, I thought that the house was going to sell really easily. I was really hopeful, but now it's becoming a bit harder than what I first imagined.
The UK, Canada, and Australia are going through very similar issues as well. I've seen a bunch of clips of people walking around the streets in London doing interviews with normal everyday people walking around, and tons of them say their biggest regret is not buying one of these flats 20 or 30 years ago. They're now worth millions of dollars, even though they were just these small little apartments like New York City. They could have retired just from that one decision. Housing affordability in so many countries has just gotten out of control.
132 days on Zillow, nobody buying it, but in reality being listed for the past 2 years. You know, when you have a home listed on the market for 2 years and no one's buying it, that's a pretty clear indicator that you're asking too much. You know, this person bought it for $1.655 million in 2015. If I just had to throw a number out there and guess what this house is worth, it's probably very close to the $2 million mark. Because of course it did appreciate some since then, but nowhere near as much as people think. And that's why it's sitting empty.
Okay, so I know this clip is a pretty heavy outlier, talking about houses that are $1.5 million and appreciated to $2 million, but most likely listed at $4 or $5 million is probably out of the price bracket of most people. But it really does show that it doesn't matter what type of house you're looking at, the super luxury stuff, or at least very expensive housing if you're talking about Miami or LA, New York City area, or just the regular suburbs for middle class people with the average $430,000 house. Almost everything just seems wildly overpriced. Not that many buyers make enough to qualify for a home loan over $2 million. Makes a very good point there. About this time next year, America will be in deflation mode. All prices will start to drop and keep on dropping. As much as I hope that to be the case, we've kind of been hearing that for what, 3 years now? And it's really only gotten worse since then.
I don't care what you bought your house for. I don't care how much money you put into it. I don't care what upgrades you put into it and the amount of money that went into those. And I don't care how much you need to sell your house for in order to be able to afford your next home. Your home is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. That's it. And I'm not saying upgrades don't matter, because they do. I talk about what adds resale value to your home all the time. But what I'm saying is, if you bought your home for $700,000 3 years ago and you put $50K into it, your home is not automatically worth $750,000 because that's what you bought it for and that's what you put into it. It's worth what the buyers are willing to pay for it in the current market conditions. So you look at the market, you analyze the data, and you determine what is the best price for what buyers are currently paying for a home just like yours in the area.
And that's basically as straightforward as it gets. You could have legitimately had beautiful renovations to your entire home, making it gorgeous. High quality materials, very in fashion trends. But if there's nobody out there who's willing to pay the price that you listed, your house isn't worth that. And people are just so tired of that now when they go through home listings.
Yeah, inflation is crazy. But you want to know what else is? The most delusional people on earth right now are currently trying to sell their homes on Zillow in 2025. Their houses have been on the market for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. They continuously take it off and they put it back on, wondering why no one's buying it. Well, let me tell you why. They're trying to sell the house for 3 times as much as they got it. They've made 0 updates. They painted the ugliest accent wall you've ever seen in your entire life. But somehow, some way, it still makes the house look even more dingier. There's no parking in the area. The area is the same and it's not even developed. And on top of all that, they're in these realtors' comment sections wondering why their listing isn't being sold.
These types of clips really never end. I mean, we have another clip that's up on screen of a woman taking a look at a Zillow listing of an overall pretty small house in Franklin, Tennessee that's listed up for $800,000. Now, looking up that town, it seems to be a very wealthy area in the suburbs of Nashville, but still, commanding that type of price for what you're getting is just absolutely ridiculous. I've told you several times where I used to live in New Jersey. Almost everything is like that, whether you're in a super nice rich people suburb or some pretty rough areas, and there are a lot of them in New Jersey. It is so wildly expensive that I decided to uproot my life and live in North Carolina because I didn't think any of those houses were worth it in the entire state. Now we could switch gears a little bit with a comment from you guys and a clip that goes along with it, because this is definitely a different reason why homes aren't selling anymore. BlackRock has been on a buying spree of new construction in Arlington, Virginia. $1 million homes being scooped up, then immediately rented back out at ridiculous prices of sometimes $10,000 a month in rent. They have plenty of shell companies to hide the game that they're trying to play, but at the end, you know who the rent check is really going to. And we have an example right here of somebody refusing to play that kind of game.
We just had a report come in where this couple gave their realtor specific instructions to only sell the house to a real person and not an investor, LLC, or corporation. They're in a fast moving market, and even within a couple days, their realtor actually told them that, hey, we've got a couple investor cash offers, and they stuck to their guns and they denied them.
So I mean, if you are in a position on holding out on selling your house, refusing to sell to one of these companies that motto is you'll own nothing and be happy is a pretty good decision in my book, but there are so many people that want to have a rental empire. All of these homes are just assets to be flipped and make more money. Then in turn, you could own even more properties and rent them out, and the cycle just continues on and on.
If anybody out there is wondering why the housing market is still messed up, you see all these blue signs? There's a whole brand new block of houses. Every single one of them is owned by the same company, and they're all for rent.
Now, I'm not sure what the pricing range was for any of those houses in that clip, but we go straight over to the next one with apparently $1 million houses. I wonder why they're not all occupied.
One of my houses is right there on the end. I've had that for over a year, about a year and a half. All of these houses Brand new builds. Available. All 10 of them. For sale. Just sitting here. Year and a half. 10. Like, these are $1 million homes. Maybe that's a problem. 10. Just chilling.
Obviously, I know that the value of homes have gone up drastically over the past few years, but that does not look like $1 million each to me. They look like 55 plus community homes. They aren't that big. Most of them are ranches. But yeah, you keep holding out to that 7-figure mark on those new builds. I bet somebody's going to come by and scoop it up any day. Those aren't $1 million homes, 250 to 300K max, all grossly overpriced. $1 million homes, I see the problems. That was basically all of the comments. And we could go right over to the next one that seems like a picture perfect example of somebody who bought one of these guru courses to start your rental empire. They purchased this property to flip, got over their heads, and are now hemorrhaging money.
I'm getting absolutely screwed with this house. Okay, so we have been under contract 2 times to sell the property, and it has fallen out of contract both times. We're having to hold it forever, and we're not even going to make that much profit, and I have a ton of money tied up in it. So we expected, around $90,000, including our own money and a little bit of profit, come back to us, for operating expenses, things of that nature. We're supposed to close in 1 week. We're on the adventure of it being like the 5th month of owning the property. Can't get it sold, trying to sell it. We have, like I said, probably like maybe like $75,000 of our own money tied up in it. And then we're gonna make hopefully at least 15 grand of profit, which sucks. But I just want to get my money back so we can go back to operating our company, and we're getting kicked in the nuts day after day.
That road noise is insane. I would go crazy living there. That was almost comically loud. That's a poor buy. What were you thinking? I could almost bet that he thought it was a steal looking at it on Zillow. He just has to do the modern day flip with the fake wood floors, paint all the walls white, and boom, he's gonna get 5 figures back. Completely ignoring the fact that the roads are deafening and would turn a majority of potential buyers away, and now he's stuck with it. Let me guess why. It's louder than the 405. Damn, is that the highway? The noise is out of control. Too much noise, stage the house and get background music. I don't think background music's going to drown out those cars though, but we could keep on going with these types of companies.
If the property doesn't sell, our next step would be to reduce it. Probably every 2 weeks until it sells, or you get down to the bottom number. The bottom number is where we consider as our break-even number that we did not make any money on, and it's pretty rare that we ever get to that number. But in most cases, if I get to that bottom number, which is how much I paid as well as how much I have in the property, and this has happened a couple times in my history of 30 plus years. Let's just say I spent $300,000 total all in on it. When I get to that sale price and it doesn't sell, we're going to refinance it and put it on the rental program. We're going to put it on the rental program for at least a year or 2. And when it becomes vacant again, we will go in and touch up paint, etc. And we'll try to sell it again when the market improves.
So if these homes aren't selling for the price these companies want, they're just going to rent them out, adding into the problem of how difficult it is to own anything nowadays. A comment from one of you guys here. People used to buy or build their homes to live in until they died, and maybe even pass it on to their family to make their lives easier. Now they think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. I couldn't have really said it better myself, but let's go back to these overpriced new build homes.
The house behind me right here is another example of one of these overpriced new homes that they're putting up all around us. It's listed for $640,000, which compared to some of the other houses they're putting in around town is actually pretty cheap. So let's break it down really quick and see how much money you'd have to make in a year if you wanted to live in this house. So assuming that you only have $500 a month in debts, you have about 10% down, and you have today's interest rates of around 7%, you would need to make $200,000 a year in order to afford to live in this house. The location over here is not good. We're like 5 miles from downtown, maybe 7 miles from the river, and they have nothing but desert to expand into and build hundreds, maybe even thousands of more homes. You gotta make $200K a year, which is pretty much non-existent here, to have a house that's so close to your neighbor you could touch if you stand in between. A lot of you say, oh, don't buy a new house, buy an old one. Well, guess what? Old houses, that's a finite resource. They're not making old houses anymore. Pretty much all the ones around me and all the ones that I've seen in Oregon and all across the West Coast been bought up as flips with cheap IKEA remodels, immediately listed for massive profit or for a terrible, terrible renting price. The starter homes that used to exist, they don't anymore. Honestly, they really do not exist anymore. They've been flipped. Some of the comments and most of them sit empty. It's such a joke. Tiny homes are the new starter homes, I guess. That's a pretty good transition into the next clip because these are the sponsored posts that I'm seeing.
With less than $9,000 down and a monthly payment around $2,000, this brand new house behind me could be yours, located just 10 minutes from downtown Durham. Let's check it out.
So again, not surprising, it's an open concept, new build, but they're so compact together, they really look like a dollhouse. It seems very creepy to me. But I guess this is the new age starter home. Great. $2,000 for how many months though? Because 30 years comes out to $720,000 in payments. Well, somebody figured out how much you're actually paying with interest over that time. Millennials don't want micro homes, we want real houses, but all of those houses are $600,000. $2,000 for a clubhouse, $2,000 a month, $300,000 for 100 square foot in North Carolina should get you tarred and feathered. Real estate is a field of vultures. Another person, $2,000 a month for Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. No thanks, way overpriced. And whether it's the new construction or the older houses that are wildly expensive, it's not surprising that we're seeing a record amount of people pulling out of these deals.
What happens if you're selling a house and the buyer backs out during the inspection phase? Well, the short answer is you just put it right back on the market and you sell it like you did before. You just don't want to get that stigma of that property that was under contract and that fell through for suspicious reasons, as I call it. And what I mean is that future buyers are going to say, hey, was there an inspection done on the property? And if you say yes, and you say that's why the previous buyer terminated, that potential buyer is going to want to know what was on that inspection report. Just get ready for that question. And any big things that came up on that home inspection report, make sure you get those taken care of before you put it back on the market, because that can really hold up the show and that'll cost you money down the road.
I mean, that is good advice. That's not what happens most of the time. So many sellers try to hide the issues with the house until it's sold and it's not their problem. But yeah, I wonder why people back out after the inspection. I bet everything was in tip-top shape. They just got cold feet, right? However, to some people, if you do end up backing out from one of these deals, you're apparently garbage.
Did you know sometimes you have to put your house back on the market as a seller, a home seller, because the person who was going to buy your house is actually garbage? Yeah, sometimes it happens. And there's nothing that you can do as a home seller to deal with that garbage. So you take the garbage out and you put your house back on the market. Now that we're through all the garbage, what really happens when you put your house back on the market? The same thing that happened before.
Okay, so I'm not trying to say that every time a deal falls through, it's 100% because these sellers were being very scummy and the house is falling apart. They were just trying to hide it. I bet some people do genuinely get cold feet or something comes up, they can't afford it. However, I've heard a lot more experiences like this showing the horror stories of the inspection being done and how bad these houses really are.
What was the reason you pulled out your house purchase? I'll go first. Ed, our surveyor, calls us and he's like, in my 18 years of surveying, I've never seen a flat this poorly insulated. And we were like, great. And then we got into the bathroom dormer, you know, like the bit that sticks out. And he was like, I just can't see how this is past building control sign off. There was all sorts wrong with that. And the straw that broke the camel's back. Let me show you this picture. Apparently there was all sorts of structural things going with the roof, but I'm no expert. But aren't these bits meant to be touching the top? I don't know. I called my solicitor that night and I was like, get me out of this. I don't want a project. I don't want to be fixing all of these issues. But yeah, why did you guys pull out?
I had to pull out on a flat purchase because the service charge was upwards of £5,000 a year. And the agent tried to hide it from us the entire time, telling us they thought it was only $500. I hope this doesn't change our thoughts on it. I put an offer in on a house that had solar panels, looked into the paperwork, and they were put on the house as a government scheme or something. So we'd own the house, but not the roof. After talking to our solicitor, she added that she didn't even understand and never seen a contract like that. We've also gone over a lot of the solar scams before, very shady.
I am selling my house and losing probably about $20,000, maybe more, but let's hope not. I'm sharing this with all of you because I have heard, oh, that never happens. People never lose money on the sale of a house. That's not true, especially if you purchased your house in 2022 or 2023 at the height of the market. I think if you're selling your house right now, dependent on what market you're in, you might be facing something similar. And I've seen a lot of people talk about that. But buying a house in 2023 or building a house like we did was what we thought was the best decision.
And there's a little bit to add on to that. It is new construction. If you watched any of my previous videos talking about it, there are more and more people, including myself, that are very iffy on buying something that's brand new. The quality just doesn't seem to be there. On top of building it at the peak of the market, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to make money or break even at this time in 2025. Some of the comments, when they say investment, they aren't expecting you to sell in 2 to 3 years. If you sell 1 to 2 years after, unfortunately, any gains that you've had had are eaten up by realtor fees. People don't consider those fees when it's time to sell. So it's starting to sound like much more of a flipper mentality. Like any investment, you have to know when to hold and when to sell. I sold my house in Charlotte last month. I bought it for $310,000 in 2023 and sold it for $295,000. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay anything at closing, but sucked for sure. A comment from you guys that goes along with the new construction build. The first thing I do when scrolling through real estate listings is anything in an HOA field. And if there is anything in that box, no matter the merits of the house, I keep scrolling. I do the exact same thing. So that does also cut out a lot of the new construction builds, and you'll have an even smaller pool of clientele who are willing to buy the house today.
This story went viral on Reddit about a homeowner in Colorado who listed their house, and it's been 45 days without a single showing. TLDR, they bought the house for just under $540K, and they put almost $30,000 more into it. Now, they started that listing at $540K, and they've already cut it down to $525. They still owe $475,000 on the house, and they know they're going to lose money, but they don't want to lose even more for agent fees. And then she says that they've been also building a new house out of state that they've paid for, and it's going to be done at the end of September, so they need to sell this house. Now, it sounds like they're stretched way too thin, and you just hate to see it.
I don't know. I think that might be an understatement. Already building another home while you're actively losing money on the first one? A little bit more context with the comment section. The problem is that the house is in Wellington, Colorado. It's Wellington, duh. It's in Wellington. There's nothing in Wellington. No one wants to live there unless there's no other option. So on top of the high housing prices, the high interest rates, location is of course a big factor as well. And it sounds like whoever made this post is going to lose a lot of money.
Dallas homes appear to be extremely overpriced, but maybe if they drop 40%, they'll start selling. This woman says, I sold my home last year in Dallas. I had to reduce my price several times, but it did sell. She says, I hope to pick up a good deal once people realize they need to reduce their list prices. Dallas housing supply is through the roof. We're talking 60% more inventory than normal. This is great news for DFW home buyers like us because there's the most selection that the market has had since the tail end of the last downturn in 2011-2012. But great news for buyers typically means bad news for sellers. This person says, good, it's about time for a price correction. Prices need to drop 30 to 40%, if not more, because everyone thinks their home is $500,000 to $750,000 in the North Dallas area.
Dallas homes barely worth $400,000 are listed for $800,000 with zero updates or maintenance. It's wild out here. As a homeowner, I hope the market crashes. I'm tired of spending crazy high property taxes that's based on unrealistic home value. Another issue coming up right there. Along with Austin and places in Florida, one of the very popular areas that got built up very quickly during the COVID era when people were moving and spending outrageous money on homes. But now people don't have that kind of money, and we're starting to see the real estate market swing to the buyers, which in turn brings in examples like this with buyers demanding a lot more if they do want to sign on the dotted line.
Can I just vet about selling a home? Our house has been on the market for 9-10 months. We're supposed to close tomorrow, and these people, the request of things is like outrageous. They want a credit towards future issues, like the stone on the outside. They want 13 grand to fix the stone if something happens. They want us to redo the cement on the side of our house that we just put in to build stairs. We just put in a golf cart path and now they want stairs, but they want us to do it and us to pay for it. Are these outrageous requests or are these normal? Help.
Okay, so the credit for possible future issues, I'm not sure if her house is brand new or older. Again, if it is new construction, I kind of understand a bit more because there's truly unlimited amount of examples online showing that these houses are made of basically paper mache. But again, I don't know the year her house was built, but a lot of people in the comments are saying the same thing. They're making those requests because it's been listed for so long, 9-10 months. That's someone taking advantage of the home being on the market for a long time. They must believe that you're desperate to sell. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but at least in my opinion, if I see a listing of the home that's been up for 250 days, I immediately think that there must be a problem with the house. Why hasn't it sold? Either legitimate damage or problems with the house, or it just being overpriced in general.
So, update on the house. The realtor just told us, I thought that we would be, so we bought this house for $350. I thought we'd be able to sell it for $4. Sorry, I just drank some carrot juice. We put so much money into renovations into this house, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. I thought that would be able to go towards the house, but we can only sell it for $355. So I basically lost my inheritance. My dad left me like $40,000 and I put it all into the house. And that's about how much money we're losing. So
The best advice I ever got around owning a home is that it isn't an investment. It's a place to live. I agree with that more and more now. Your mortgage payment is still like rent, and if you get money when you sell, it's a plus. Real estate is a long-term game. You're not losing, you're moving too fast. There's no one in the world who would have told you to buy a house for $350 and sell it for $400 while also putting thousands, apparently tens of thousands of dollars into it. It doesn't make any sense at all. Sounds like it was overpriced when you bought it, possibly again during the peak a few years ago. Too many people making a quick buck in the game and they don't know how the pieces move. So I mean, if you were anywhere in the financial space around COVID time, especially 2020 when a lot of us were stuck in our house, there was so much content of everybody saying you gotta buy property, start your real estate portfolio, you'll just be racking in money so quickly. And it kind of sounds like that got a little bit out of hand with people's cash offers over asking, and now we're seeing somewhat of a correction. I'm not saying that we're back to normal. Houses are wildly unaffordable still, but we're not in the same era where you could buy a house and make a ton of money flipping it in a year.
A lot of people who bought homes over the past few years thought they were making a really smart financial decision because they had FOMO, the fear of missing out, the fear of wondering, am I ever going to be able to buy a house if I don't buy one now? And fast forward 2 or 3 years later, now that a lot of people made that decision, it's really coming back to haunt a lot of people. You're seeing countless stories of buyer's remorse and regrets that a lot of people have. And today I want to highlight a story about how buying with FOMO and buying with a mortgage rate buy down is really coming back to bite a lot of people in the butt.
Okay, so before we hear the story, I wanted to add a comment from you guys that still, I think so many people don't realize when they're purchasing a home. It's not just the mortgage payments you need to worry about. General upkeep can ruin your day. If you aren't putting something away for the new heater, windows, locks, etc., there's always something breaking and there's no landlord to call. You could add on possible increase in property taxes. Increases in insurance are almost guaranteed as well. This can become so much more expensive than you initially thought.
This property was sold back in 2021 during the frenzy for $8.87 million. Then the person turned around, listed it for sale, already at a loss, already at a $600,000 loss, right? And then they finally sold it for $6.25 million. So the prior owner of this home literally lost over $2 million on the sale of this property. And in 2024, when it was purchased again, of course, the next owner turned around and is trying to do the same thing and flip it. And they've already had to cut the price by $500,000. And now they're only about $900,000 above where they bought the property for last year. And this just goes to show you that some people just never learn, right? Like this person bought it from a flipper who lost a bunch of money, and they came in thinking that, well, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to be the one who makes money. Well, so far, they're not the one making money. That place has been listed for sale since June, and we are now in September, and they have a major price cut, and the house isn't sold. If they do get lucky enough to sell it, it's probably going to be at a substantially lower price than what it's listed at right now.
Okay, so I know that's a very extreme example. Buying a house for $8 million and in the end losing $2.5 million? That is legitimately endgame retirement money you lost on a home. And then the next person thinks that they're going to be the genius and be able to flip it. It's honestly just hilarious to me. And this isn't the only example.
This goes to show you how unrealistic sometimes people are. So look, this property started in the market at $650. Boom, 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 boom. And that was back in 2023, October 2023. Didn't sell, didn't sell, didn't sell, didn't sell. Finally sold for $450. From them wanting $650, so they took $200,000 less than what they originally wanted. This is why you list at a good price instead of having to sit on a property for so long and then eventually coming down to what it's worth.
Now, I think that clip pairs very well with the next one. Just very straightforward.
If your home's not selling, it's because it's overpriced. Buyers determine the value of your home. And if you're not asking for a price that's currently within the ballpark of what the buyers would consider as a good value for your home, then it won't sell and it will sit on the market. So if your home's not selling and it's sitting on the market, you can either do improvements to it to make the value of your home more to match the asking price that you're currently asking for, or you can lower the price to what the home is actually worth in its current condition. That's it.
But I still feel that so many people still want the 2022 and 2023 prices. They looked up the estimates and oh man, it was worth so much. But I don't think I have to tell you about the cost of living crisis, the terrible job market we're in. Many people don't have a lot of money to spend in general. We could take a look at some of the comments. I always say a house is only worth what the buyer is willing to pay for it. Buyers determine value, really great way to say this. A seller near me was horrified that his house wasn't worth more because he put so much into it. The changes he made were all elderly accessibility accommodations. The buyers changed it all back. In North Carolina, a home that sold for $360 in 2019 is now listed for $640 with no updates, been sitting for 3 months. I know that all too well.
The U.S. housing market grinds through a cruel summer. That is bad news for everybody. Let me summarize this article for you. Essentially, home listings across the state, at least of Florida and the United States, are basically stagnant. People are not able to sell their homes, so therefore they're staying on market for longer. You're also seeing people delist their properties at a rate of around 20% nationally and close to 60% in cities like Miami. You're also seeing, since interest rates are rising, the people that have homes to sell have just decided that they're going to pull and not even sell at all, and they're just going to hold on to the property until they can get the price they're looking for.
And there you go again. People want absolute top dollar, even though that perceived top dollar was wildly inflated. We have a funny comment from one of you guys that isn't that far from the truth. Don't worry, BlackRock will buy your house at a discount and then rent it back to you with a healthy increase each year. You'll own nothing and be happy. We saw entire communities being built, all giant single family homes that didn't even have an option to purchase. It was only rent. Now we could switch over to some other examples on why homes aren't selling, people pulling out of their purchases.
My seller may have to pay $35,000 to sell their home, and here's why. So past clients of mine recently listed their home. They bought prior to COVID and have been able to take advantage of the huge swing in prices and the equity in that. They gave me a call a year ago thinking they were going to sell and ultimately decided not to, and then called me back maybe about 2 months ago and decided they were ready to put the home on the market. When I pulled up, the first thing I saw on the side of the house was solar panels, and I kind of immediately knew we had a problem because there was no way they had owned the house long enough to pay down these solar panels very much. If you're not familiar with the way it works, solar panels are a totally separate loan that usually has to be either paid off or rolled over to the new buyer. And in a lot of cases, the new buyer doesn't have the money, nor do they want to accept somebody else's kind of bad financial decision. Because I'll be honest with you, unless you're going to stay in the house for 20 to 25 years, solar panels are not a great financial decision. So as we were discussing their options for listing the home, I told them, look, it'd be really great to find a buyer who was willing to take these on, but understand, like, here's your worst case scenario if they don't, which is you're going to buy these solar panels and then leave them behind for somebody else to reap the rewards from.
Now, we went over this on a separate video on my channel previously, but if you can't purchase these outright with cash, the finance options can legitimately be 15, 20, 25 years long. So either you're going to take a massive hit when you do sell the house, because it's extremely unlikely for a buyer to just take over the payments for you, or it's just going to sit on the market forever. I got a solar quote for my house, 30 years of payments for $160 a month, plus I still cover about 30% of my power bill, about $57,000. I laughed at them. I wish everyone would think about this prior to installing solar panels, could void the roof warranty as well. Can't raise the price of the home because it won't appraise. That's some people's thought process as well. They'd get solar panels, then the house would be worth more, and it just really doesn't seem to work out that way. A comment from you: my neighbor had roof damage from a hurricane. He had to pay the solar company $10,000 to remove the panels so the roofers could replace the roof. The insurance company did not cover this. His savings didn't amount to much. Now, we were seeing some absolutely atrocious loans on those solar panels, the interest rates being absolutely ridiculous, people paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on top of how much their mortgage costs. Another comment: people buying a $400,000 house with $12,000 down is wild. If you don't have more than 3% to put down on a house, you absolutely cannot afford the house. That's some of the issues that I've seen as well with people being forced to sell right now. They truly could not afford the payments in the first place, even though they were technically approved, and now trying to get out of the deal, they're just getting destroyed. Here we have one that's definitely an interesting example from an influencer.
just got a call from the realtor that the people buying our house might be backing out. They were here yesterday for inspections, and the inspections went great. There's literally nothing wrong with the house. But, of course, they asked my husband, what do you do for a living? And we say, oh, he's a stay-at-home dad. And then the questions follow, well, what do you do then? And I said social media. And they acted like it was so cool. They were like asking all these questions. Like, how do you make money doing that? How many followers do you have? And I had mentioned that I did a post about us moving. I thought it would like ease their mind. Like, we didn't post to our 1 million followers that we're selling our house. They took that as we have a stalker, which is why we're moving. If we had a stalker, we would not be here. My kids wouldn't be playing outside right now. I don't know if I'll post this because I'm such an ugly crier.
Okay, so there's a few different things with that one. Just at the end, I don't know if I'll post this, and of course they did. I mean, I don't know if you're supposed to lie to the potential buyers, not saying that you do social media for a living, but then also making content around it while you're moving might not be the best choice. I don't know why the buyers thought that they had a stalker. That seems a little bit crazy to me. Nonetheless, they pulled out of the sale. Again, the creator turned off the comments, so not the best reaction most likely. Just something I wanted to put in this video, a pretty crazy example.
So I've been trying to sell my condo. Finally got an offer. We were good. We were through due diligence. Everything was working out great. I was excited to sell it. And then the buyer's agent calls me and she said, Jacob, we have a problem, a very, very big problem. We're going to have to withdraw from this contract because we have talked to 3 lenders and they will not give a loan because your building doesn't have the right insurance. And I was like, what? Because I checked, and my HOA was like, yeah, we have the insurance needed, because I don't know if y'all know about this, but there's been insurance issues with HOAs and condos, and it's been just kind of a cluster for everybody dealing with this, but I thought we were squared away. Well, come to find out we weren't.
I mean, I really don't know what to make of this. Hearing all the stories, especially in Florida, talking about condos with the crazy insurance because of the consistent storms, adding the HOAs on top of it, just an absolute mess. So much so that now this guy's getting screwed and the buyers are backing out of it. Just one after another after another. I mean, here's one with crazy insurance.
I'm not sure if you guys are actually keeping up with the whole insurance market or anything like that currently, just anything that's going on in America right now. But listen to this. This woman says that the soaring insurance prices forces her to sell her house, nearly owning it 30 years. Look at this. Louisiana, okay? Louisiana is the state that this happened in, and this is ridiculous. Look at this article. Okay, so according to Assurify, an online insurance marketplace, the cost of homeowners insurance in Louisiana could jump so it's not even done yet, could jump another 23% by the end of the year, the steepest increase in the country. Now, I believe it because, listen, I'm not, so obviously myself, I'm an insurance agent, and this is why I do all this stuff to keep all, everyone else informed. But listen, 23%, that is steep. That's outrageous. You know what that means? Again, that means on average.
Yeah, so it could be even more than 23%, adding into even more people being forced to sell their homes in a pretty stagnant market. You never actually own a house in America when it could be taken from you from property taxes and insurance. What am I supposed to say? They're not wrong. You'll own nothing. Last year, my home insurance went from $1,300 to $7,800, and my car insurance went from $132 to $350 with a perfect record. This is true, also raising property taxes. Mine jumped 30% in a year. Car insurance going crazy too. This has become an even more depressing episode than I already thought it was going to be.
Is anybody else out there trying to sell their house right now? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Our house has been on the market for just about 1 month, and it's just sitting. And I go on Zillow and I see, the rest of the market seems to be doing the same. I think I read somewhere that the average time right now to get an offer is 5 weeks on the market. But my God, it's tough living in a staged house with a toddler and 2 dogs. So just trying to find my community out there to get any tips and tricks on how to get this sold so that we can move on to our next spot.
So we could go right over to the comment section, giving her some advice. Drop the price, plain and simple. Sellers are unwilling to even consider that their houses are overpriced. I made offers. One house has been on the market for 7 months. Our house is pending before it's even listed because we priced it correctly. If you aren't getting any showings, you gotta lower the price, even just a little bit. A lot of these examples don't actually show how much money they're selling their house for, and I do understand why, because the more information they would give, they'd probably dox themselves. But I am willing to bet that many of these homes are probably listed for more than they're actually worth.
This is a story time about how we got screwed on the previous buyers on our house. Basically, our house has been on the market, our house sold, we got the due diligence check, we signed contracts, inspection was set up, inspection came, inspection was good, we then set up the appointments for closing, had a closing date, literally all of the above. 8 days before closing, our realtor gets an email, literally with nothing in the subject line, nothing in the email, nothing. It's literally just termination paperwork. No reason, nothing at all. We've never been given a reason. This was 2 weeks ago.
So currently we still have almost record high home prices, very high interest rates, and low sales volume. Another statistic that has increased as well is buyers pulling out of the deal. And I get it, having to stage your house going in and out, especially if you have a whole family, would be a huge pain, but it does really sound like the seller's market when it comes to real estate is probably over.
Our buyers just pulled out. They just canceled, they dropped and canceled everything. So what happened was, the inspection came back and they said there was $20,000 in damages inside the house. There was not. They said they needed a new roof and they were asking for $10,000 for a new roof. And we said, we'll meet you halfway with 5 because there's no leaking, there's no damage. The roof is old. Okay, it's old. The house was built in 2005. You can move into the house, get homeowner's insurance, and have a new roof changed because homeowner's insurance will give you a new roof. And they pulled out. They canceled, they dropped everything, they pulled out. We had to drop the price of the house and put it back on the market. We're back to square one. It's just, oh my God, it's been so hard. Bills just keep piling up.
Okay, so this one's an interesting one with the inspector going through about $20,000 in damages, including an old roof, so I kind of understand why they pulled out. We can look at some of the comments. Homeowners insurance no longer replaces roofs at 100%. Since your roof is old, it might cover about 20. That's what an inspection is for. Buyers didn't like what they found. I would have also backed out. A new roof where I am is $20,000 to $30,000 depending on the size of the home. So even trying to go 50-50 with the $5,000, I feel like it'd probably be more expensive. A lot of people saying that they would have backed out as well. So maybe we're starting to turn a new leaf in this real estate market. I don't know.
Folks, for sale signs are stacking up everywhere in the U.S. housing market. Some of these sellers are even taking losses. On this house behind me, they bought it for $267,000 in 2024, and now it's listed for $230,000. I'm seeing like houses for sale literally right next to each other. The prices are dropping and dropping hard in many cities and states across America, especially in the South. This is where data from ReVenture is showing the biggest inventory surge and where price declines are happening first. Over here, this is an open door house. They're America's biggest home flipper. You can see the blue sign right here. They're trying to sell a 3-bed, 1-bath house, 900 square feet south of Atlanta for $216,000. Folks, sellers in Florida are taking huge losses on houses. The owner bought it in 2022 for $390,000. It's now listed for $357,000. When you look at this map on ReVenture app, prices are dropping almost everywhere in Florida. And the reason I'm showing you guys this is to show you the truth about what owning real estate in Florida means. Yes, there's big booms. Yes, you can make a lot of money in the long run. However, there's also big downturns, there's big crashes. You see, this owner also tried to rent the house out first. He had it on the market for rent at $2,600 a month, cut it to $2,500 a month. There's a lot of rental inventory in this neighborhood. He couldn't rent it. Now he's deciding to sell at a loss.
And we could go right over to the comment section with the Florida clip. There are too many builds and not enough income or interest to support $500,000 houses in Florida. The economics are too lopsided, distress and home prices will drop like a rock. And I don't know if you heard in the background of the first clip south of Atlanta, is that there was a dog outside constantly barking the entire time. I don't know about you, I wouldn't want to hear that in the background all the time either.
anyone else trying to sell a house in Southwest Florida, we've been trying to sell our house in Southwest Florida for probably close to 3 years. We rented it out for 2 of those years. We made the mistake of moving to Florida, thought it was going to be a whole different life. We were looking for peace. We got total chaos. We stayed there for 5 months and we moved back to our original state. We're still here now. We rented that house out for 2 years, and then as of this June, I think it was May, the end of May, June, we put it up for sale. We finally have buyers, and now the market is so bad that we're hoping that the appraisal that's being done tomorrow is going to appraise for at least what the offer was. It's a solid $150,000 less than what we paid for it.
And the appraisal could make it even worse. My other thought with this situation is you didn't go down there for a long period of time before you bought some sort of long-term Airbnb in the area where you were expecting to buy a house. That's a pretty big mistake to not like where you actually purchased, and now you're losing $150,000 just to get out of the deal and go back to square one. Very odd decision in my opinion, but we can move on to the next clip.
Google searches for can't sell house just hit an all-time high, higher than 2008, higher than COVID, higher than anything we've ever seen, and we all know what that means. But there's a problem with the chart. This only goes back to 2016, so I went back and I checked every single year of Google Trend data. And when you go all the way back to 2004, it was basically a non-existent search term, and then this has just been taken off like a rocket lately. So unless interest rates fall dramatically, you're about to see home prices fall across the board.
Going over to the comments, are you saying Gen Z might be able to buy a home? Wow, it's almost like a $200,000 house isn't worth $1.3 million. Someone else also said, I can't sell my $500,000 home that I bought for $250K in 2020. And that's why some people are taking massive losses right now. But on the other hand, you still have some sellers that are completely delusional.
I just encountered another completely delusional seller / listing agent in a recent offer that I wrote. And here's the story. So for reference, I'm selling my client's townhouse. They're upsizing to a single family home, currently in escrow on that townhouse. So we're writing offers on homes that they love. This home we wrote an offer on was listed for $1.2 million. We wrote a little above list price. That's how much they loved it. And we got a counter. And this counter was mind-boggling. The seller is requesting to live in the house completely for free after close of escrow for 30 days. On top of that, the home will be sold as is, no repairs, no credits, even any termite work. It's going to be up to the buyer to do that after close of escrow. On top of that, they said, you know what, if your appraisal comes in lower than what you are writing an offer for, you're not going to be able to adjust the purchase price to make up for that appraisal difference. So we didn't even respond to this counter. We just walked away, and now we're looking at different homes this weekend. But to ask for free rent backs, no repairs, no credits, appraisal, forget about it. In 2025 is absolutely ridiculous. This is something that occurred in 2020 and for the most part of 2021.
On top of it being a $1.2 million house, and you know it's probably worth half that. We have some sellers that are still stuck in the peak of COVID years and won't settle for anything less other than the absolute top of the line price. And that's just not happening 6 years later. I asked you guys in an older video, do you see overpriced listings where you live? Yep, the sellers keep delisting and relisting their homes to restart the clock on the MLS. Some sellers in my area have been doing this for the past 3 years. They refuse to accept their home is overpriced. I also live in North Carolina on the coast, and it's all overpriced D.R. Horton builds and overpriced older homes that are about to fall apart, and the seller refuses to fix anything or come down on the prices. Don't sell homes for $800,000 when they should be $350,000 houses. I'm in Canada. What do you think? We'll see a clip a little bit later about Canada. One house near me was originally priced at $1.2 million. A single family home that's 2,500 square feet was on the market for 124 days and sold for $900,000. The original bathroom and kitchen was from 1989. The market is still cooked no matter how you look at it. 40,000+ homes in Las Vegas are overpriced sitting on the market. There are no jobs in Vegas anymore, only layoffs and casinos losing everything with no tourism. But regardless, we're still seeing clips like this being uploaded all the time.
280 days on the market, our buyer makes an offer at 90% of the list price. What happens, Jenny?
Well, the listing agent told me that the seller wants their list price. I said, well, what's her plan if she doesn't get it? She said, to keep the house. And I said, good, that's a good plan. because that's what's going to happen.
We offered $50,000 under listing on a $699,000 property 7 weeks ago, and they declined. Today, it was reduced by $55,000. The longer that house sits on the market, the more sellers it drives away. The assumption is something is wrong with either the home or the seller. Exactly. 280 days on the market means it's overpriced. 90% was a good offer, and that's still not enough for some people. Here's another one up on screen. Me sending an offer on a house has been sitting for 200 days. Listing agent, we have multiple offers coming in. Yeah, sure you do. Made an offer on a house that's been listed for over a year, so we offered $40,000 under, and yet again denied. Sold a few months later for $175,000 under. I really just don't understand. Saw a house on Zillow sitting for $850,000 for a couple months, then dropped to $799,000 and stayed there for a couple more months. It just got relisted for $1.25 million. What do you think's going to happen now? I put an offer on a house that's been sitting for 2 months. The agent came back and said the buyers were offended with my $10,000 under asking, with no other offers on the table. Do you want to sell the house or not? We could really sit here and read comments like this all day long. They are never ending. And we got one from you guys talking about the people who bought in the past couple years. They overpaid for their homes and now they want us to overpay for their homes. Don't think so. But now we can get into the absolutely ridiculous prices in Canada.
Miriam Musavi admits she's been struggling financially as a full-time real estate agent in the Greater Toronto area. A single mother, she was forced to list her own home in April. 7 months later, it hasn't sold.
I have to basically beg people to come and just even look at the house.
The national average sale price of a home sold in October was just over $690,000, down 1.1% from a year ago, according to the Canadian Real Estate Association. This home east of Toronto was purchased in September 2024 for $2.3 million. Last month, it sold for $1.2 million.
Guess what? People can't afford million-dollar homes that are only worth $350,000. They inflated the market and now cry. Well, as an agent, she should know. If it's not selling, the market doesn't support the list price. No one wants to spend $800,000 on a $350,000 house. No one has the money. Inflation is killing us. That house was never worth $2.3 million in the first place. But talking about her being a real estate agent, we could go over to some of the recent stats.
Did you guys hear about this? The National Association of Realtors just dropped the numbers for 2025. Roughly 71% of realtors across the United States did not sell a single home last year, and it's literally almost 950,000 realtors out of the 1.3 million that are licensed across the U.S. did not do a single deal.
And I know some people do it as a side hustle. They just have the license and don't really do much with it. But regardless, with those types of stats, it sounds pretty obvious that most people can't afford houses these days. And what happens because of that? They just sit collecting dust.
You guys honestly aren't going to believe this. Those townhomes are still for sale over 2 years later. It's almost unimaginable that they could build all these condos and let them sit for sale for so long. Some of them listed for almost $600,000 still. So recently, they put a whole bunch of money into this quiet, serene public landscape area. It's right here on one of the busiest streets in town. I'm literally having to yell so you can hear me. So basically, all these units are just emblematic of the greater housing market, where there's so many refusals to lower prices. You can see that all these years later, the for rent sign is still up. Personally, I believe a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, whatever, on one of the busiest streets in town with basically no yard isn't worth more than $250,000, $300,000, but that's just my opinion. And I guess in the olden days, people not buying it would drive the prices down, but that's just not how it works anymore. It's anybody's guess as to what's gonna happen here. But I want to say thank you to those of you who've been here since the beginning. All those years ago when I made one of my first videos about this place.
It's crazy that he gets to go back years later and see the exact same issue happening, along with showing a perfect example of how loud it would be if you did live there for $600,000. But no, we're not gonna lower the price at all. It's just gonna sit dormant. And with those being new construction, they have a pretty short lifespan. They're definitely not going to last as long as houses built 50 years ago.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm about to go tell a seller that their $900,000 house is actually worth $550,000. Welcome to Jackass.
There's actually a good amount of clips like this online. I like this trend, but no matter how many times you tell them, some sellers just won't accept that. Someone around the corner from me bought a small bungalow for $1.4 million during the pandemic. They would be lucky to get $700,000 for it today. The economy needs more of this kind of reality check. Tell them that the $550,000 house isn't worth $900,000 and they shouldn't have paid for that. The creator responds, "You're exactly right. During COVID, I told all my buyers, you better stay in the house 5+ years or you're not buying it." But many did not take that advice. They saw the wild increase from people who bought in 2015 up to 2020, 2021, and they thought prices would constantly increase like that all the way up to 2025, 2026. And obviously that's not what happened. We got another comment from you guys right here. Buy a house you'll love. Don't buy a house you want to sell in the future. But we've heard so many times that it's always an investment. You can make more money in the future. You absolutely have to buy a house right now. That's how you start building generational wealth. And to be honest, I'm just really tired of hearing that.
People who bought their house in 2022, now 3 years or 2 years ago, they want to sell their house and they're trying to sell it for 50 grand more than what they bought it for. But really their sale price is their purchase price. And again, if they used a VA or if they did some sort of refinance and rolled their closing costs into it, like, they can't. And so I'm meeting with these folks and trying to have these conversations with them, and it's a really hard pill to swallow.
And like I said, some people won't accept that, so their house will be listed for more than a year, with absolutely no buyers being interested. I bought my house in 2019 for $130,000, just had it appraised for $510,000. Now, if I were to sell my house for $500,000 and buy an equivalent house, I would essentially be paying $500,000 for a house that's really worth about $130,000. That's something that's always glossed over with the people who have made a lot of money in their houses over the past few years. You now have to move to a different area with a much lower cost of living and either do your research or get very lucky that it's also a up-and-coming town. So it's really not as easy as buying a house, just waiting a couple years and making free money from it.
Let's talk about the number one factor in selling a house, okay? Do you know what that is? It's pricing. It's always been pricing. I don't care how good of a house you think you have, what great condition it is in, all the modification that you've done, the location, the school district. While those are all factors and a reason why someone is attracted to your house, at the end of the day, they're going to buy your house on the most important factor, and that is how much is it going to cost them, okay?
Here's another sobering truth for you. Buyers don't care how much you bought the home for. They don't care how much money you put into it. They don't care how much you spent on your high-end appliances. Certainly don't care what you need to net.
And because of that, we have sellers that would rather delist and relist their house every single year.
According to Redfin, nearly 45,000 sellers who threw in the towel and delisted their homes last year came crawling back to the market in January, the highest number of relistings for a January in over a decade. This is the seller delusion narrative in full effect. It's a phenomenon prevalent in hybrid markets where the power hasn't yet fully shifted from seller to buyer. These are sellers who would rather pull a home off the MLS for a few months, hoping against hope that conditions will improve before relisting the same exact house with the same exact problems. In San Jose, California, 257 homes that were delisted last year hit the market again in January. That represents 12.5% of the total inventory for that month, the highest share of any major US metro.
But it's because they're told it's not a great time right now. Maybe delist it and relist it in the spring or the summer. The buyers are magically going to come back, as if people are going to magically be able to save a massive ton of money to buy these homes.
If you're trying to sell now, it's a horrible time to sell. If you look at it, Zillow just shows everywhere there's price drops after price drops after price drops. So it's a horrible time to sell. And I told these people, and I said, listen, this year, by summer, the buyers are supposed to re-engage and we'll see some very strong buyer activity. But last year, most of the MLS was down between 6 and 6.5%, depending on your neighborhood and price point and things like that.
So why do you think it's going to be any different in 2026? Again, the cost of living hasn't gotten any better. It's not like everybody got a pay bump for some reason. We're going to see the exact same problems as last year. But we can move on to just a couple clips here that I just had to put in this video. We have one of a guy trying to sell this house 45 minutes outside of Houston.
For less than $8,000 as a down payment, I can get you into this modern starter home
Perfect for my first time buyers, just 45 minutes from downtown Houston. Let me show you the inside. Come follow me.
Okay, so he does a normal tour with the music behind it. 45 minutes out is pretty far, but the price really isn't that bad, at least in comparison to other homes. However, the HOA is $900 a month. How do you think you'd be able to sell that? And that's basically every single comment under this video. HOA $900? You had me till HOA, lost me at HOA. Why? Do you have almost an extra $1,000 a month for it? That one was just absolutely unreal to me. Here we got another clip up on screen with the power lines being in front of your driveway. But yeah, get ready for a massive discount on that townhouse, or be ready to let it sit listed until the end of time. Here we got another one. This is why it's important to ride past a property before falling in love with it online. Now I really hope this means this person's just doing a tour of the property and they didn't purchase, because their neighbors look like absolute nightmares. But that's all I got for the funny clips in this video. We could just move on.
The Las Vegas Valley is now firmly a buyer's market for residential real estate, according to a new study. This is from Patrick Blenner-Hassett and the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Redfin estimates that the Valley has shifted towards a buyer's market almost more than any other major metro in the country, as the number of sellers now outpaces the number of buyers by 96.7%, which is up from 47.9% year over year, ending August. The only other metro area that has seen a bigger shift from sellers to buyers this year is Denver. And in terms of it being a seller's market, the only place worse is Newark, New Jersey. They lead the category.
But as we heard with the comment earlier, there aren't as many jobs in Las Vegas anymore, especially with them relying heavily on tourism. People don't have expendable income to go over to Vegas and hang out and gamble their money away. But even with some of these areas turning into buyer's markets, or the housing prices beginning to drop, it is still way more expensive than renting.
According to Realtor.com, they say that the median U.S. rent for July of 2025 is $1,712 per month, which is actually down 2.5% year over year. And while the average monthly mortgage payment does change significantly depending on how much you paid for your house and your interest rate and your down payment and everything like that. According to Redfin, the median monthly mortgage payment at a 6.58% interest rate right now is about $2,600 a month as of the end of August. And that's with a 20% down payment, guys. And we're going by the median sale price of about $435,000. So that is still a crazy amount of money. And you got to come up with 20% down in order to even get a payment that low, which means you need to have like 90 grand at closing. Might as well just call it 100 when you round up to having all the closing costs and title fees and things like that paid for. So you got to spend 100 grand right off the bat out of pocket to have a $2,600 or $2,700 a month mortgage payment right now. Whereas if you're renting that same property, you could be paying $1,700 a month.
And I think it's pretty obvious to say most people don't have a spare $100,000 for the down payment. And that's only talking about the mortgage. We could take a look at the other expenses that of course have increased over the past several years.
I'd rather talk about the hidden costs of owning a home. So here's how much the average total payments for owning a home has gone up over the past few years. This is a 10-year chart. So notice how it really accelerated after the pandemic, obviously because of all the money printing and inflation. Okay, so this is the total average payments, right? But this, like this line that I've circled in red, is how much property insurance has gone up, and we are seeing no relief. And the next one I just circled is property taxes. Since 2019, insurance costs are up 72%, and property taxes are up 31%. So listen, I want you to think about that, because even if mortgage interest rates fall, then of course, yeah, that's gonna help out home affordability. However, the affordability situation can continue to get worse if insurance and property taxes keep rising like this.
So that average $2,600 a month mortgage becomes way more expensive when you factor all of this in. And I know that there are many people who don't know how interest really works, so when they start seeing videos like this, it really deters a lot of home buyers.
We bought a house in 2025 and it might have been the worst financial decision ever. Let's talk about how much we paid in the year of 2025 toward this house. We're not going to include all of the repairs that we made, which totaled over $10,000, but we are going to talk about the actual mortgage payments we made, because we went from a mortgage of $364,500 to today having a mortgage of $359,681. So overall, we paid a little bit extra toward the principal and we reduced the balance of the loan by $4,818.82 in the year of 2025. In that same time, we did pay our taxes on the property, which was $5,067.89. And then we paid interest toward the bank for the mortgage of $15,828.02. In the beginning of a mortgage, you pay more in interest because the balance is higher, and we do have an interest rate of 6.375% on this loan. So the interest adds up every single month. We're paying over $1,900 in interest on this loan. It's a little bit painful to see the totals at the end of the year. We paid almost $16,000 in interest, which just went to the bank to allow us the privilege of paying a mortgage payment every single month on this property so that we can eventually, in maybe less than 30 years, own the home outright.
And again, this is after finding, at least for that situation, around $70,000 to $80,000 for a down payment. And then you could watch $16,000 disappear every year for interest. No wonder why we hear Gen Z saying that they'll never be able to own a home.
People can't sell their homes right now. They're having the worst luck selling their homes right now. This is not the market to buy. It is the market to rent. I know it sounds crazy, but right now it is more flexible, more feasible, and it's just smarter to rent right. The average length of time that a house is sitting on the market right now is about 3 months. 3 months. Some houses have been sitting longer than that because the market is vastly different than it was a year ago. Just a year ago. Like, people are losing their shit trying to sell their homes right now. And some people are selling just to go back to renting. So right now it's not smart to buy.
And because of this, we even have some situations where people could afford a home, but are deciding not to because of how much of a headache it is.
I'm 25 going on 26. I probably could afford a house, but I'm just gonna keep renting, bro. Like, of course, at some point, I would like to have my own house, but I'm in my mid-20s, and right now, I just don't see it as a practical thing. Again, would love for someone to prove me wrong, but buying a primary home that you are going to live in full-time, that's a lifestyle. That's not an investment. Like, buying a single-family home and living in it full-time, that's not gonna build me a bunch of wealth. I've seen 20-something homeowners, and they're miserable. It's a lot of upkeep. It is a lot of upkeep. And then and the people that I know, they're house poor. I truly view buying a house as like a luxury lifestyle, not really an investment, unless you are just mega rich and you're turning and burning and you just have a bunch of rental properties.
And of course, a vast majority of people are not like that. We can go over to the comment section, hey, I'm a homeowner, keep renting. And whenever I talk about this, a bunch of people get mad. If you're renting, you're just setting your money on fire, giving it to the landlord. And just like the last clip, I'm not against owning a home. I would like to one day. I just don't think it's worth it whatsoever, especially where I live. Houses have become so ridiculously expensive, along with there being a ton of new builds, so the quality isn't even there in the first place, and the rent is significantly lower than the mortgage payments. But that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.